Here we have the army of Zerahemnah facing off with the army of Moroni. Um, Once the Zoramites defected to the Lamanites, Zerahemnah established his army in the land of Antionum, whereas Moroni wanted to protect the Ammonites or the anti-Nephi-Lehites in the land of Jershon. And so they have a little standoff right there, and Zerahemnah decides in chapter 43 to flee to Manti in order to overthrow that city. Well, while they're taking off, Moroni gets information from Alma the Younger, who is the prophet, and learns that that's where Zerahemnah is going. So they ultimately converge in the city of Manti or around the city of Manti. This is where we have the battle where Moroni surrounds the people or the army of Zerahemnah on all sides, and eventually um, gets them to covenant to peacefully walk away and never return. Of course, it takes a little bit of some force and cutting off of Zerahemnah's scalp, but eventually they're able to compromise with that. In chapter 49, we read that Amalickiah wants to start the war by attacking Ammonihah. Remember that Ammonihah was destroyed in Alma chapter 16 after they rejected the words of Alma the Younger and Amulek. Well, since then, it's been rebuilt by Moroni, Captain Moroni. And so Amalickiah wants to take the advantage by destroying that city again, assuming it is a weak point like it was before. Well, because he doesn't go with his army, he relies on his chief captains to do the job, and when they arrive, they realize it's heavily fortified. So they swear an oath that they'll go to the city of Noah and attack it instead. When they get there, they realize that it's pretty heavily guarded as well. And so they decide to attack anyways because of their oath, and they have heavy losses where they lose about 1,000 Lamanites and not a single Nephite is killed. So they end up going back to the land of Nephi where Amalickiah is. And this is where he becomes extremely angry and irritated, and he swears an oath that he will drink the blood of Moroni one day. In chapter 50, Captain Moroni takes the time to sweep out the remaining Lamanites within the eastern half of the Nephite nation, and also he establishes cities such as Moroni, Nephihah, Lehi, and Morianton, and so forth. And after that, he fortifies them in preparation for the upcoming war. Well, after he's done this, there's a time of peace, and everything seems to be going well until the city of Morianton and Lehi have a dispute about land. And a man known as Morianton, he was the leader of the people of Morianton, decides to take up arms against Lehi, and the people of Lehi flee to Moroni, and they tell him what's going on. Well, the people of Morianton get really nervous that Moroni is catching wind of this, and so they decide to take off and go north and try to escape to another place. Well, before they're able to do this, a maidservant of Morianton flees to Moroni and tells him of their plans. And so he's able to head them off at the land of desolation, right at the top of the Nephite nation. And fortunately, Teancum, who is a ninja warrior and a fantastic chief captain of Moroni, is able to head them off and kill Morianton, and then bring the people back with a covenant of peace. So in chapter 51, we learn that the kingmen have been causing a dispute in the city of Zarahemla. They wish to replace Pahoran, the chief judge, with a king. And there's ultimately a vote, and Pahoran is able to retain his position, but the kingmen don't agree with the vote. And so they start causing a lot of contention that causes Captain Moroni to come and basically handle the situation. Well, during this time, Amalickiah decides to come with his armies. He actually comes this time, and he takes the city of Moroni, and Nephihah, Lehi, Morianton, Omner, Gid, and Mulek. And Captain Moroni gets extremely nervous about this because their escape route to the land of desolation, if things were to go wrong during this war, is about to be cut off. And so they'll be surrounded by the Lamanites on every side, which is horrible during war. So he sends Teancum to the city of Bountiful to protect it. And Amalickiah decides to try to overtake him, and fortunately, Teancum's able to retain that stronghold. So the boundaries remain like this for about a year or two. That's because Moroni's had to battle the Lamanites on the western half of the nation, whereas Teancum has remained in the land of Bountiful to defend it. Fortunately, there's a time where Moroni, Lehi, and Teancum are able to have counsel in Bountiful on how to retake the land of Mulek. They determine that Teancum can act as a small, or can take a small decoy army near the city of Mulek to lead the Lamanites out of the city and leaving it vulnerable. And the Lamanites take the bait. So Teancum then alters his course back to Bountiful, allowing Moroni to then come in from the western half and take the city of Mulek with little to any resistance. Well, during this, the Lamanites reach Bountiful as they're trying to catch Teancum, and Teancum's army and Lehi's army have now joined forces. And then Moroni is coming up from behind, and they surround the Lamanites that were chasing Teancum's army. This leads to many people dying in battle, but they ultimately take many of them prisoners of war. Well, during all of this, the Ammonites, or the people of Anti-Nephi-Lehi, which were once in Jershon, have been moved to Zarahemla for safety. And they hear that a lot of the Lamanites have been coming up on the western half of the nation and taking many of the cities on the western seashore. And so they think about breaking their oath to God and taking up arms to help out the Nephites. And this is where we get Helaman and the 2,000 stripling warriors, where they ultimately go to the western half of the nation to help retake those cities. And that's why we see later on Helaman and Moroni never meeting up together, but instead we have Helaman writing epistles to Moroni for support.